And we back.
Hey, what's up? We back. It's been a long time.
I know.
It's been a long time. Once a month, you know?
This ain't the intro. This the entree.
Ooh.
Got the podcast with Curtis. Don't vote for Kanye.
Ooh, please. Please. Whatever you do, don't.
So, real quick, I guess we want to start off by saying, look, Black lives still matter. All right? Arrest the cops. Arrest the cops who murdered Breonna Taylor. But with all that being said, you can suck my
Who? Wait, who?
everybody, the whole world.
Okay. Yeah, nah, you're right. I could deal with that.
Eat ass, all of you. We are fucking back. Better than ever.
That's for the audience to decide, I guess. We'll see how much better than ever we are. We did get some crazy ass lights though.
Delicious.
But you be the judge of that. You be the judge of that. So what's popping? What's been good? What's been happening?
Oh, you know, we got a great show coming up for you guys. So, in a little bit, we're gonna talk about some Entanglement. Y'all love that shit. Some boomer culture, and then a segment Kurt likes to call casual conspiracies.
Ooh, that one hits home. Yo, wait till you see it. This is so fair warning. Obviously, we're just starting the recording, so we don't know how long it's gonna be exactly. But this is gonna be a long podcast, bro.
But that's okay.
Oh,
we
and
put love.
Real quick, shout out to my man Ty Guy.
Ty.
So as you can see, it's a little different of a background. We only have one other video, so I guess you don't really know what the background looks like. But my man Ty Guy let us use his basement because we had some finagling. Yo, my man Ty Guy, real one.
He was day one.
The young one, real guy, real one.
And Monica, since you wanted a shout out, here's your shout out. Fuck you.
Oh shit. Well,
actually, I'm not even gonna. You know, fuck you.
Well, I guess that's our intro. So as always, it's your boy K,
and I'm Boppy,
and this is the KBop Variety Hour.
Let's go with it. So it's been a great month for media, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I mean, you think about it. So Crunchyroll just came out with an original called God of High School, which they're starting this trend of adapting webtoons, which is something that's like super unheard of. So they just got done adapting Tower of God, which is like one of the most popular webtoons out there, and then now they're doing God of High School, which is like super popular, bro. We got the second season of Fire Force coming out. We got the second season of ReZero coming out.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of those.
It's all good. I'm super excited for it though. Your boy is super excited. But we also got this this Will and Jada shit. How do you feel about this though?
The only thing I could say is I feel if the roles were swapped, it'd be a totally different story.
It would be, definitely. 3,000%.
We could agree on that. If
3,000%.
it was Will who came out and was like, yeah, I was feeling a little sad, so I was out there maybe fucking on my daughter's friend who was how old? So it was. She met him through her son, right? Mm-hmm. So how old was he? I
think he was like, if I'm correct, I think it was like either 24 or 26, something. He was.
I guess that's not too
He was in his
young.
mid-20s.
I was thinking like 19, 20. Like
I don't think so. Nah.
But regardless, if my man Will Smith came out and was like, yeah, I was
It'd be
fucking on some 24-year-old because I was unhappy in the relationship. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the, what is it, the Red Room talk? Is that what they call it? The Red Table talk. I saw enough of it to see my man Will Smith's eyes. I saw
Everybody
super
has
sad.
seen my man's eyes at this point.
And that shit hurt me, bro. It was like, ooh, like. But we have our own little ideas of that, I guess. I know we talked about it a little bit.
I'll tell you what my whole thing is. Number one, I do not like Jada Pinkett Smith just from this whole thing. Like, first of all, I want to make it very clear that I personally don't care what they do in their relationship. Like, I don't think it's anybody else's business what they do in their relationship, but of course, Black Twitter's going to take over, and next thing you know, like, their shit's all over memes of Will Smith crying, this and that. But at first, it was just like that meme of Queen Latifah looking at him like, yeah, you doing it. But So, from my perspective, is first of all, we wouldn't even know about this if this man didn't go out and tell the world. And the reason he did that was to get publicity for his album.
Yeah,
Like, he started the media frenzy that led to all of this because he needed publicity.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you get back to Jada, like, so the reason that, from my perspective, that they went on to the red table to do this was for media control, essentially. Like, they needed to control public perception, so they hop on her show and do this. I have problems with it. Number one, your whole brand is being real and realistic and real talk, and that's what the red table's supposed to be. But like, the first thing she said is, I haven't talked to August Alsina in 4 years. That's a lie. He was on their show last year talking about drug addiction. So that's a lie. Again, I don't care about what you do in your relationship, but don't say that you're real talk and then come out and lie. And then you're here and you're like trying to pepper coat it, and even Will Smith is like, that's bullshit, call it what it is, it's a relationship. She's like, that's what I said, it's entanglement. And then like the media frenzy blows up, and my whole thing is that no publicity is bad publicity. So they did it on purpose. They did it on purpose to because they were already getting publicity for it, to control public perception of the situation, to come out and be like, look, we were in an open marriage, this is how it was, like, that's all it is. And like I said, I don't care about their relationship, but if you're going to say that you're real, be real about it. Personally, from my personal opinion, is that celebrities are addicted to attention. Like, attention is the currency of the world we live in. We live in the media age where everything and anything is for attention. And if you think about it, Will Smith, his whole life has been in public perception. Jada Pinkett Smith, for a really long time, has been in public perception and married Will Smith, who's like the Fresh Prince. Everybody knows who Will Smith is. You know, Jaden and Willow have both lived their whole lives in public perception, like Willow handling it far better than Jaden does, but even still, like, it's all about public perception. So I think that they're addicted to the attention that they get from these things. Like, she's on a show that's literally about her being real, but I don't think she's real. Like, you're a media personality. Don't tell me you care about people. Don't tell me you care about people, because you don't care about people, because you've been a media personality your whole life, and I know for a fact that you don't care about people. Like, you don't care about people like me. So, and that's my problem, I think. So, baby boy, I love the podcast. I really do. The podcast is something that we enjoy doing, and even weeks like this where things don't always go our way, we find a way to get out here and do it because we enjoy doing it. Like, I have fun doing it. So I think that my disconnect is in a world where the only way to make yourself pop in is to go out there and essentially sell your soul for attention. Is I have the disconnect because I'm not one of those people. Like, I don't like hopping on Instagram and being like, hey guys, go watch my new podcast.
It's your boy.
Super great.
Yeah, no,
like,
I feel you.
And even like, if anybody who actually watched the last podcast notice that follows us on social media, we didn't really post it all that much. And not because we were super into the subject matter of what we were talking about, and I think it was super close to our hearts, but we didn't want to like clout chase that particular subject. And the thing is I don't want to clout chase anything. Like, I post it on social medias, I do what I need to do, I send it to people, like a lot of people personally, like, hey, listen to the podcast, we talk about some cool stuff on here, me and my boy. But I'm just not the kind of person to whore myself for attention. So I have this disconnect between being who I am and not wanting attention, and being a very private person and wanting the most poppin' ass podcast in the whole world. Like, it's tough for me.
I could agree with that 100%, because even, I mean, as you know, some people might not, before this, I had the esports team, Gravity Gaming, and I had the same issue with that. Is it's like, I'm not trying to do, Facebook live videos of me chilling on the couch watching something, or, like anything. Like, I'm not that, I don't want to say that I'm self-conscious of myself, but when you like look at that, when you open up your camera on accident and it's just your face in front of you and you get this look of like, what is that? Like, who is that? What I look like? So looking at myself on a camera, like, kind of creeps me out a little bit. I'm not. Everybody has their own self-image. That's different from, you see yourself different from I see you, you see me different than I see myself. So I definitely feel the same disconnect of having to put myself out there for the sake of the podcast, but not wanting to privatize myself. I feel you 100%. Yeah. And going back to the Jada thing, it's not even just that they're looking for attention. Like, you got it. Like, attention is what makes them money. Yeah. Like, it's not even just like they crave that attention. Like, that's literally what makes them money. That is, even though like I don't think they really need any more money. I mean, she gets a little, but like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that being the fact, and I mean, if you look at her Twitter, like we really don't post a lot on the Twitter, you know, like it's. I don't want to make excuses. Let me not make excuses. We definitely could do more on the Twitter, and we could do more to unprivatize ourselves. But we're gonna have a poppin' ass podcast anyway. You know what I'm saying?
We
like, it don't matter.
already have the most poppin' podcast. So I think I've been thinking about this honestly because with a lot of stuff going on in the world today, like I've had to really think about the world that we live in. So number one, like the world is so overly sexualized. Like almost everything you do nowadays is so sexualized, but it's in a weird way because like we treat women in this way where if they overly sexualize themselves, they're whores, but when guys do it, it's like a double standard. But it also leaves me to believe, like, think back to your childhood for real, right? I don't think anybody I ever knew got the sex talk. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody, like, there's this fabled story of the birds and the bees. But does anybody really get that? Like, who goes to their parents and sits them down and is like,
I'm ready.
Yeah. Tell me where the clit is. Like, it's just crazy. Like, what are you going to do when you have kids? How are you going to go about that?
Well, to back that up, thinking about my childhood, I definitely learned about sex through either other people talking about it or movies and TVs, which could be why we're in a position where everything's so overly sexualized, because you're getting it from TV. Like, I remember one time I came downstairs, my parents were watching Sopranos, and it was a sex scene, and I remember thinking, oh, this is what sex is, you know? Like, so you get this overly glorified sexual thing, you know? You don't get these birds and the bees, so you get your sex information from, 95, any females that I ever get with, 95% of what I know is from fucking porn. Right?
100%? Yeah. Well, no. I give it 95 because the other 5 is like experience of things that
where
you've
somebody
done
like,
already.
I like this, not that, and you're like, oh, all right, I'll add that to my catalog. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So
I got some moves. I got a little bit of moves, a small amount of moves.
And my parents, we've never talked about it ever. Like, there was never a sit down of like, hey, sex is a bad thing if you don't do it right. Like, there was none of that. Obviously, like, I knew. I'm an intelligent enough person to know I can't just be busting in anybody and expect life to just go on like, nothing. You know, I'm 20. I just turned 26. Goddamn. A couple of days ago. I'm 26 and I don't have kids. Thank God. Bless the Lord. But for my son or daughter, obviously, it'd be drastically different for the two, but
why is that though?
I feel like females definitely have more responsibility when it comes to being pregnant.
Why?
Because
I mean, I get it. It's your body. It's things that's happening to you. Things are happening to you that aren't going to happen to a guy.
Females are going to get the bad end of the stick, where males will get the good end of the stick. Obviously,
but if you treat your sons like,
but I'm not just talking me. Like, say he's in high school and they're like, oh, you got her pregnant, you smashing that, nice. Like, it wouldn't. Everybody I know that got a female pregnant in high school always was looked at as, you're getting play, dog, nice. Like, and then.
But I think that's the thing that's wrong with the world. Yes, I think if we sat down our sons and we're like, this is as big as a thing, this isn't happening to you and it's happening to somebody else. But if you're man enough to lay in bed with somebody, then you got to be man enough to go through those changes with them.
100%.
And I think that's what takes like real responsible men and changes them from boys for real. Because I think that in a world where you can actually sit your daughters and your sons down and say like, this is what it's like, this is what happens if it's not treated properly, and this is how to properly go about it. But I think that, so I actually have this theory that in the world, so problems have been going on for so long, and we'll get into this in a minute, but when there is a problem, especially something that's systemic, we overcorrect. Like, the first reaction is always an overcorrection of the problem, and I think that's what we need to do, is I think we need to put more emphasis on young boys for the responsibility of what happens when you knock a bitch up.
Because how many people do you know that got pregnant early where they're still together, where the man stayed? I know somebody who the man straight went to Florida and was like, I don't know who you are anymore.
Oh my
God. That's another reason where I was saying the female talk would be a little bit different, because I feel the female, as far as I know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't mean to, throw any stereotypes at anybody, but like, I feel like the female is the one who, if something happens, the teenage males never take the kid. the teenage males, as far as I know, never get
Males
custody.
usually don't get kids,
Yeah.
period.
So if you're going to get pregnant and say he does leave, if you're talking to your daughter, like, you need to prepare them for that situation of, like...
Well, my God, you need to prepare yourself to help her raise that kid, because, like...
Oh, me?
I mean,
like, if my daughter got pregnant?
If you're
Yeah,
the parent and your daughter gets pregnant and the guy is out,
Yeah,
like,
100%.
you're gonna have to take more responsibility probably than the daughter at first. Because, like, what does she know about raising a kid? You done raised 3. You better help. But
I feel that. But I mean, also it is like we're talking about it now. We don't have kids when you have kids. Like, I feel like every person thinks, oh, my parents did it this way, I'm going to make sure I don't do it like that. But then when you have kids, it never really turns out like that, I feel.
I think there's subtle changes. I think there's things that really affect you. You decide that you're going to go change. I don't know. I don't have kids. Thank God. Spiritu Santi. Like, I think that it's tough because you don't want to be like your parents and you don't want to be like your parents' shortcomings, but we also live in a world where most of us don't get along with our parents, and when we think about how our parents raised us, we're like, oh, we could have done that so much better. But being a person, because when you're a parent, you're a person, you're expected all this responsibility, but you're still a person. How many people get pregnant young and then when in their 30s they wild the fuck out because they didn't get to when they were 20? Like, that's a thing. So...
And you're never ready for a kid until you have a kid. Like, you could think and say whatever you want to say, but until that kid comes out and you're paying for these...
Yeah, come on. When that test comes back and you're like, yo, that shit is positive, that's tingle goes through your spine. Even the scare, bro. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a scare, but scares, bro, that shit, like, yo, your whole body begins to feel it. You're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do right now. Like, so it's just... It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. Because I know that I'm not ready personally. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be ready. I'm just a selfish person like that. I don't know how to give.
I feel like kids also change you into that person. Because once you have a kid, you need to. Like, you need to change. Like, but if you had a kid, say you had a kid tomorrow. Say your girl hit you up and was like, yo, I'm pregnant. You will have to change.
Don't you fucking dare.
But I'm saying you might be selfish now, but you would have to change. And that would be what changes you
upset. Another thing that I want to do if I ever had a kid is, you know, I really want to change my lifestyle. That's another reason I don't want to have a kid, because I'm the kind of person where, like, for real, I work second shift. I don't roll out of bed until before 11:30, and saying that I get up at 11:30, that's being very, very gracious. Like, I eat a lot of candy. I drink a lot of soda. Like, I don't really work out as much as I should. There's a lot of things in my life that are kind of just let go by the wayside for the sake of random dice. So
3 days, no podcast, random dice.
So I think that when I have a kid, personally, I want to make structural changes to my life because I want my kid to be healthy and I want my kid to live a correct life. And I think people just get so caught up in being a parent, especially when you're a parent early and it's overwhelming and you don't know what to do and you're working 2 jobs to kind of support. You're just like, there are things you turn a blind eye to because you're like, I don't have the energy to deal with that. So, like, I don't want to be that kind of person. So
I also when I have a kid, I've always told myself I'm going to be as real as I could be with the kid, like, about everything, like religion, like all of that, like, you know, knowledge, like whatever he wants to do. Like, of course I'm going to be out here beatboxing with my son and freestyling, but, like, I'm not going to be a person who tells him what he needs to do or tells him what he needs to think. And I mean, I'm a atheist or whatever you want to say I am. I don't know, you know, who knows, it changes every day, but, like, I'm not going to force those things on my son. I'm not going to be like, nah, you know, your idea of religion is not real. I'm going to be like, yo, listen, like, this is what life is. This is how you have to be in life. You know, you got to treat others how you want to be treated, whatever. And, like, just, I feel like kids don't get the ability to free think until they're almost 18, 19. Like, my parents told me what I had to and had to not do. Like, my dad went to church, so I went to church, and it was kind of like an idea that was forced onto me. That maybe even is the reason why I switched up later, but I don't go to church, so it's not, you know, a thing that would happen, but I don't want to go to church and force my son to go to church because, you know, I think it is right. You know, obviously some families who are very religious. Like, when you are very religious about a thing like that, of course you don't want your son going to hell or whatever, so, like, you're going to do it. But I always told myself I'm going to be as real with my son as possible, and I would like to have that birds and the bees talk. It wouldn't be as nice. I'm going to be real about it and be like, listen, you could have sex. It feels great. It's dope, but, like, these are the consequences that come with it, and I feel like that's what isn't happening.
Your talk is so much more responsible than mine. I'm going to be like, you know, like one of those things you put on, like, this is the clit. And then anytime they ask me anything, it's clit. Like,
yeah, what if she gets pregnant?
Clit. this right here.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I personally feel like that's another thing is like even in the schools with they're not doing sexual education and stuff. I think that's the problem because you're just you're throwing a blind eye at it. You're being ignorant to it, and they don't know the dangers. Like I remember watching videos of like STDs and stuff, and I was like,
because that's what they do. They just they just throw a bunch of weird STDs at you, and they're like, this is what happened.
My mom used to tell me all the time if I had sex before I was married or 18, my pee would fall off. That shit haunted me. Like, come on now.
Tina does look like the type.
Yeah, she did. Yo, she did. And I remember the first time I told her I had sex, we were talking about something, and I looked at her and I was like, my pee-pee never fell off. And she was like, what? And I was like, my penis never fell off. Like, it's still here, and I'm chilling. Like, but that's how that went. But I feel like the ignorance is what causes the problems. Because if you're real about it and you understand the risks, like, if you're going to do it, they're going to do it. Yeah. Kids are going to do it. Yeah. Everybody has sex at some point. Well,
So let's dial this back a little bit and talk about about teaching your overcorrecting your boys. So I was talking about overcorrecting your boys. So not to I don't want to say any names, throw anybody under the bus. We have a friend, me and Vic, and recently at work they had this situation where their boss had said something inappropriate to them. Something about like she was bent over getting something, and he was like, I'd hate for you to have to go down on me, and he laughed about it. And old people though, bro. Mm-hmm. They say things like that. Even I had a friend of mine tell me that his girl had somebody at their job say something weird to them, like I love it when you come or something, and it's like, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I had to think to myself, and it's always kind of older people, older males have this thing about women where they say these kinds of things, and it's in their head it's okay. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, it was a compliment, or oh, it was a joke, or oh, it was this, oh, it was that. So I had this revelation kind of, and is that boomer culture? Do you think that these kinds of things have been okay for so long that now that the world is changing, they don't know how to change with it? Because they always give, and when it happens, bro, they always give the ill, racist white person excuse, no, it was a compliment. Mm-hmm. You're beautiful.
I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah, I just, it was a joke.
It was a joke,
yeah. I don't know, I have women friends.
I could 100% agree with you that it's boomer culture, because you gotta, going back, almost like the race thing, going back 60 years ago, women didn't have rights to vote. They were seen as property. They were seen as objects. They were seen as, you could do whatever you wanted to a woman, nothing really happened. You had husbands who were raping their wives who didn't really want to be in the relationship, and then when they would say something about it, police would just, you're his wife. That was his wife.
Yeah, marital rape wasn't a thing until...
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, you had auctions for people's daughters, and even daughters they were seen as property. Oh, you marry him, we'll get some cash. Females have always been objectified. Is that the word? They're seen as objects throughout history. Throughout as long as you could remember. And even now you could see it. You could, we talked about. A woman dresses a little promiscuous, and it's you're a slut, you're a whore, and it's why?
Exactly.
But why?
But even when these things happen up until recently, because it's going back to that overcorrection thing, is the world has started to overcorrect it, and that's kind of what Me Too did. But I think that these kinds of it's so tough, because I don't want to say that Me Too hasn't done a lot of great things. So it gave a lot of people a platform to come out and speak about their experience of wrong things that have happened to them. But in the world where everything gets taken and it gets run through the media machine and it gets bastardized, and now what comes out on the other side is that people can come out and give an allegation, and the allegation itself is damning enough to cancel the rest of your career, and none of it's contextualized. And that's part of the overcorrection, but it's a bad part about it. It's so
kind of I'm thinking of the Johnny Depp situation. His wife Amber was abusive, and she burnt a cigarette on him. There's a bunch of stuff, and he had stuff canceled. As far as I didn't do the research that I did for the rest of this podcast, you'll see. But from what I was reading, she kept her show, she kept everything, and she accused him of doing stuff. So he got canceled. He got cancel culture. He was canceled.
So
but it came out as it was the flip. She even tried, there was text messages that he was talking about where she even tried to have sex with him one night when they were fighting to say that he raped her. So his semen DNA was inside of her, so she could tell people that he raped her.
Bro, where have I been for this?
And he's been coming out about it, which is crazy because Johnny Depp has been a very personal person, you know, like he's in movies and stuff, but you don't really know about his life. You don't hear about him, but like he's actually been coming out of this stuff, and it's actually pretty big. I'm surprised you didn't hear it because like they're.
So what I was thinking about in my head, I was thinking about the shit that happened with Justin Bieber is like just a fake Twitter account pops up out of nowhere and just starts making allegations, and the world is harping on Justin Bieber. Like if he didn't have those receipts, my man would have been canceled. It sucks that we live in a world where somebody on Justin Bieber's like PR team is like, no, we need to keep receipts for fucking everything this man does. Like we need to have alibis and this and that. So it sucks that we live in that world. I just think it's terrible that we live in a world where the truth is not the truth. The truth gets pushed by the wayside if the lie is more interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, I think that we need to cover the truth and cover the answers to these allegations with the same vigor that we do the allegation itself. Like, there's lots of people that come out and is falsely accused and their whole lives have been canceled. I mean, look at this. All right, so Bill Cosby's a rapist, right? Bill Cosby deserved to go to jail. All right, and there's plenty of different rapists. Weinstein, he fucking used his power to manipulate girls. Like Epstein, another person who used their power, and we're getting to him later. But you have somebody like Louis C.K. Like Louis C.K. was canceled, and his story was just kind of like he was in a group of girls. He was like, yo, can I jerk off in front of you? They were like, yeah, I guess so. And then he jerked off in front of them, and then he got canceled. Now,
I mean,
is what he did creepy and disgusting? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did he rape anybody?
But the issue with that is if you, like, so when you draw the line there, so did he rape anybody?
I'm not drawing the line there. I'm not saying what he did wasn't harassment per se, but it wasn't assault. And I think the thing is that's what I was talking about is contextualizing. Does Louis C.K. deserve to be shunned from the public eye because of what he did necessarily? Like, I think that we have to contextualize it. Like, it's also the same thing that when somebody comes out with something like R. Kelly, for instance. R. Kelly is a piece of fucking shit, bro. Like, R. Kelly is fucking terrible. Does that make Bump and Grind any less of a fucking bop?
Some people might get upset with the words, but like, nah.
We have to disconnect people's art from who they are as a person. We glorify these people to the point that we put them up on such a pedestal that when they fall from that pedestal, you're like, you and everything you've done is fucking worthless, and that's not true.
I think the issue with especially artists, like especially musicians, if you listen to his music, he gets money for it. So I think that's kind of where you want to draw the line.
Bro, if you listen on Spotify, he's not getting no money for it.
But are you sure about that?
It's the same reason everybody takes their music. It's the same reason why all the title people take their music off of Spotify is because they don't make any money from Spotify. You don't make any money from music. You make money from touring. You make money from merch. Music? You don't make jack shit from music. You've never made anything from music. Never.
I mean, besides like album sales back in the day when you actually had to buy albums. Yeah, but
because you gotta get somebody to press that. You gotta get somebody to release it. You gotta get somebody to market that.
For the CDs.
You gotta pay for the fucking studio time to record the music.
No, I feel you.
Maybe
100%.
he makes some money off it, but I just think like saying that the Cosby Show is any less of a great show that came out whenever the fuck it came out because Bill Cosby is a rapist is like I just want to contextualize these things. Are these people disgusting? Yes. Are these people pieces of fucking shit? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that what they did was right. I'm not even giving them excuses for that. Hang them from a fucking tree for all I care. But is Louis C.K. still a funny motherfucker? Yeah.
Is it I Believe I Could Fly? Is that what it's called? Or
What, R. Kelly?
Yeah.
I Believe I Can Fly, yes.
That shit's still an anthem, bro.
Yeah. But I think that's why R. Kelly hit the black community so hard because he has so many anthems. Like, I mean, Step in the Name of Love, Bump and Grind, I Believe I Can Fly. Like, there's lots of things.
You saved me.
So, there's lots of things that it just... I think that we can look at these things objectively without completely canceling people. Because the problem with cancel culture is that as soon as you step out of line, they're coming for you, and there will be no mercy.
I think my thing with cancel culture, because there's definitely like, all right, Louis C.K., yeah, like if they said yeah and he did like all right, but like somebody like Bill Cosby, like he should be canceled, but there should be facts. Like you should be I don't want to say innocent until proven guilty when you talk about something like rape and shit, but like you shouldn't just cancel off of like
Well,
speculation. You should have
the
proof.
law says that you are innocent until proven guilty. It is not a prosecutor's job it's a prosecutor's job to prove you are guilty. Like, it is the defendant's job to prove deniability. Like, that's how the law works, and we live in a world where you are guilty until proven innocent. And there's things like Bill Cosby. That's a pretty open, and that's a case of he said, and then she, and she said. Like, that's pretty open and shut to me. But you have things like the Justin Bieber thing, or like you were talking about the Johnny Depp thing, where because of the allegation, the pushback is so hard that your team just ends up doing damage control for you rather than getting you the rightful coverage you deserve. Like, if you did it, you did it, you're a piece of shit. But if you didn't do it and it's false, you should be able to sue for defamation on that. Like, it's just, it should go both ways. And I think because we're in the period of, and I'm not saying anything of this is wrong. Like I said at the beginning of all this, the Me Too movement has created a platform for a lot of people to get the things that happen to them out on. And it's great. Like, I think the fact that our society is moving in a way where you can call boomers out for saying disgusting fucking shit and being creepy. And you can call guys out. Like, it's not boys should be boys anymore. It's like people can be people. But I also think that once we get done overcorrecting and we start to dial it back and correct our overcorrection, we have to create it so a world where the allegation isn't more strong than the truth.
So this next segment that we're doing here is something that's close to my heart. I'm a big conspiracy guy. You know this. This is my niche. This is my area. And this is something we've talked about since before we even did the first podcast, like something that we wanted to do, but we never really found the right topic. We never found the right time. We never found the right place. And I think today we do. So welcome to Casual Conspiracy Chat.
What the fuck are you doing right now?
All right, let's get into this.
What the fuck?
So the conspiracy we have, we're going to be talking about today is Epstein, Maxwell, and the child trafficking in the quote-unquote elite society. So first things first, we're talking about Epstein, the man who didn't kill himself. So just a little rundown of what's going to be happening here. I'm going to be telling you facts. Facts. These are real things. We spent, how many times did we get together? 4 times? Hours each?
More than that,
So
bro.
we've put in a day's work into finding real facts. These are real things. So we're going to talk about some real things, give you everything that we know that's true, and then we're going to kind of rebuttal and talk about it a little bit, but we want to make sure that you know what the facts are. So first things first, we got Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. He is the front runner of what's going on right now, the man who didn't kill himself, memes being slung all across the internet. So Epstein was a financier who had ties to celebrities, politicians, royalty, who was arrested last year on multiple disturbing charges. He died by suicide in jail, but questions about his life and crime still remain. Epstein started his career in New York City as a math teacher at the elite Dalton School in the 1970s. But in the 1970s, he went to work at an investment bank, Bear Stearns, before founding his own firm, the J. Epstein & Co. in 1982. So a little bit how he got in there, he lied on his resume to get the interview for the school, and then eventually he got the interview, got accepted, he was in it, boom, and then he kind of slid through from there. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to a felony charge of solicitation of prostitution involving a minor and was sentenced to 18 months in prison. But he only served 13 and was granted work release, which allowed him to commute to an office outside the jail 6 days a week. He also had to register as a sex offender. Another interesting fact is the current Attorney General, William Barr, was a lawyer that Epstein hired back in his first case. And another interesting fact is William Barr's father, Donald, was the same man who hired him at the Dalton School. Coincidence. So next, we're moving on to Ghislaine Maxwell. So Maxwell was born in 1961 in France. She was the youngest of 9 kids. Her father was Robert Maxwell, who was a British media proprietor, member of parliament, and a suspected spy. She came from, obviously, a rich family with all of that there. So there's been conflicting stories of how she got to the United States. One of them is, fun fact, her father committed suicide. After her father committed suicide, she came to the United States to kind of get away from it all. And then another story is that when her father bought the New York Daily News, he sent her to New York City to kind of take care of business for him. While in New York, she became acquainted to some high government officials, and she also lived a very low-key life. And another little fact in there, while she was in France, she did kind of slide in with some royalty there as well. Prince Andrew, and we'll get into that a little bit later. She had 2 sisters, twins, Christine and Isabel. So Christine began her career, same as the brothers, working under the father, but Isabel actually made documentaries and was more into the television side of things. They both end up founding the company Magellan, which essentially was just a search engine before Google was big. They sold that company, and then after, Isabel became the president of Comtouch, which is an Israeli-American email messaging and security company. Essentially, it's like parents might put on their phone, on their kid's phone, a little like app that lets them know where they are and different types of things, controlling their messages, looking at their messages, essentially that. And then after that, they became Isabel became CEO of Incognito, an Israeli web content filtering software company. She sold the company around. Turned the company around and sold it in 2005. So Epstein obviously was suicide, murdered, whatever you want to say. So do you think that the same thing's going to happen to Maxwell?
I don't believe so. So when I look at this objectively, I don't think Epstein was at the top of this pyramid. Like, I think Ghislaine Maxwell was his handler of sorts. She seemed to have been the person going out and soliciting for talent for this sex slave cult or whatever you really want to call it. And I think that there are people above her. Like, I think that she's connected to the top of this chain, and whatever this ring is of elite people going in and out of his island, like, I think he was kind of the scapegoat, if you will. So I think she does have information that would be better off useful if she was dead, but I think she's so high up in this, is I've heard people talk about like a failsafe where like if she dies, like a USB gets sent out to all the major news networks to give names and proof and things like that. But I think that she's intertwined to the top of this pyramid, that she might be one of the runners. I don't think she's going to give the feds any information. And I think the reason Epstein was, suicided was because he...
That's a great verb for it.
like, he was low enough in it that he felt like he had leverage to use against these people. I think that he had enough, because I also read something about how there are videos of these people doing their acts during these parties, and like Ghislaine Maxwell has videos of all of this, and I think Epstein got taken out because he was willing to like, I'll show you some of these videos with you, I'll tell you some of these things. So plus you got to think, like, he was on suicide watch and they got taken off, and then, all of a sudden he died. Like, it's just kind of crazy the way it all played out. So I don't think that's going to happen to her. I think she's high enough in this where they got to really give her a deal if they want her to start talking. But I also think that she's not going to be okay whether she does or she doesn't. I don't think she's making this out alive whether she talks or she doesn't talk. So do I think she's going to get killed in jail? No, not specifically, but if she talks, she's going to die. And when she gets out, or if she's in jail, like, depending on how the trial goes, I think she's going to die as well. Do I think she's going to die before trial happens? No. I don't think the feds are going to let that happen. But
if I had to, I would assume that she's going to prison and she'll just die in prison. Like she'll just
probably. Do you? So there's gonna be like a year in between, like when they got her and the start of the trial. Isn't that a little weird? What if the feds are the people? What if they're the top of the food chain in this pyramid?
I mean, I don't think the feds are, but I think the people who own the feds are. I mean, if we as we go into this more, and when we get into the last topic, we'll get into more of like the government stuff of it. I think it's just a government thing. I think you got politicians and like who runs the feds, who runs all this stuff, you know, like the politicians and the high people in Congress and stuff. Another thing with her being the handler, when you look at their relationship, they aren't married. They're not dating. They don't refer to each other as girlfriend, boyfriend. They kind of refer to each other as best friends, you know? And for somebody to be this involved in something like that and to not be in a relationship, it's just super weird that you would have somebody like Maxwell who is always watching you. Always. Like, she's always there. And it's just, it's super weird, especially since, like, he's the man who's been the face, whereas you really, besides for those facts that I gave, you really don't know much about her life. Like, when we were reading through the facts and stuff, it literally went from she moved to the USA, she was invited to Hillary Clinton's, or Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Like, there was, like, a huge time jump where you don't know anything about her, and she already met Epstein, and, like, where did she meet Epstein? Nobody knows. And then apparently Hillary Clinton said that she was only invited because she was the girlfriend of a acquaintance of them, which I'm assuming would be Epstein. I think she picked Epstein because Epstein had enough money to be involved with these people. When we get into the flight logs, Bill Clinton talks about how the only reason he was really involved with Epstein was because he gave a lot of money to fundraising and stuff like that, which is like how you get in with these people. And I think he just had the money and the time and the place, and he was in the right spot to get in with those people. So she came to the U.S., she found a person who could get her into these positions, and boom, she was in. Like,
so it's also an interesting thing to bring up is that when they arrested her, one, she was just chilling in New Hampshire, living in a house under an assumed name, and she also was confused as to why she was being arrested. She figured she had immunity because everyone, like, they can only charge her for things in between a certain period of time, so she figured she was in the clear.
Statute of limitations or whatever it is.
Well, it was just that people from the Epstein case were given immunity in some particular fashion, and they could only get her between the years of like 92 and 94 or something. So she thought she was good money. She was not. Like, yeah, the feds couldn't find her, but it didn't really, when they got her, it didn't really seem like she was hiding from anything.
So Epstein had a plane, and there was, the flight logs were leaked or given out, and some of the big names that you might find in this flight log, we have Akon, damn man, Barack Obama, Ben Affleck, Beyonce, Bill Clinton, my man Bill Clinton was there a couple times, Brian Affleck, Bill Murray, Chris Wagner, Chris Tucker, list goes on, Demi Moore. Fun fact, Leo, look up Demi Moore kissing this kid. Super weird. We'll add it. James Franco, Jim Carrey, my man Marshall Mathers, a couple other big names, Tom Hanks, Will Ferrell, Will Smith, Woody Allen, Seth Green, and then Robert Downey Jr., and then we get to my man Kevin Spacey. So it turns out Kevin Spacey has actually had a little bit of a relationship with Maxwell. So Kevin Spacey was invited to the throne room as Bill Clinton's guest along with Maxwell. And then on the screen we'll show a picture of Maxwell and Kevin Spacey sitting next to each other there, looking like they're about to hold hands. And another little fun fact, we're not going to get too much into Kevin Spacey, we all know what happened, but Kevin Spacey, 3 of the accusers wound up dead.
An interesting thing to bring up about Kevin Spacey is those 3 people died, and it was like weird things, car crashes. One of them was they didn't give a reason, and the other one was suicide.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks after the last accuser of Kevin Spacey committed suicide, he came out with this weird video. Like, everybody thought it was weird. Kevin Spacey, yes. So he came out with this video that he did in the moniker of the character he played on House of Cards. But it was bizarre because he seemed to have been talking about the allegations in the moniker, like in character. It was just weird. So what's also interesting are there are rumors that the mug that he had on in the video, or the mug that he was using in the video, had royal crests on it from the royal family. And they also say the ring he puts on in the video was like a masonry ring of Freemasons. So like, it's also interesting to note that nobody came out after that last person died in that video to accuse Kevin Spacey of anything, and his charges were eventually acquitted because nobody was stepping forward anymore. Like,
that's what I was gonna say. Like, it dropped. Like, you don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah, so
nobody even really. I didn't know what the verdict was. I didn't know what happened with it. I just thought it was like, oh, there it goes.
He got canceled, definitely, but it's just weird the way it all played out, and I think people kind of think he was kind of sending a message like, yo, you'll get taken care of, or maybe even sending a message to the royal family like, yo, you better take care of this because I don't want to deal with this no more. I got facts.
And when you think about a lot of the way that secret messages get sent out, a lot of it is video with small cues, like, you know, like they're moving their eyes to Morse code and like little things like that. So it's definitely plausible that like because if you're under the scrutiny and stuff, you can't just call the king and queen like, yo, what's up? You need to do something. Like you'd have to find a way to do it. And why else would you make that video? Especially because that was after he got canceled, right? That was after he was. Yeah. So like, why would you even go and replay a character of a show that you got canceled from? It's just it's a super weird thing. I don't know. It gives me chills talking about it. So Prince Andrew said I was going to talk about him a little bit. He had allegations set to him that he was having sexual relations with a young girl. And on the screen right now, there's a picture of him with the young girl and Maxwell in the back. Weird. He also stated himself that he only met Epstein through Maxwell in 2000, and he knew Maxwell from when she went to college in the 1980s. So their relationship goes back quite a bit.
So that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, bro, about her not being her being connected to the head of this, because she had connections to the royal family. Like, she had connections to the Clintons. Like, she was the one who introduced Epstein to these people. So like, I just think that there's more going on for her. I think she's a bigger part of this, and Epstein was kind of the scapegoat. I think that's why Epstein died for real, because he was low enough on the totem pole to be like, all right, we can get rid of you, and then he's the face of it right now. Like, you don't know who's moving in the shadows for real. So I just think with the whole Prince Andrew thing is like, one, how you put yourself in that position. Yeah. Two, how it's said that the throne room is like untouchable. You don't go near those thrones, and they look like they were having a good old time. They look like they're a little saucy, like yeah. So I think that she had these connections already. I think that she's what connects Epstein to all these people. Her, like, she's in the back of that picture, and she's in the back of a lot of pictures, bro. Interesting fact about Ghislaine Maxwell: there is a picture of John Benet Ramsey. It is rumored to be right before she died. It's not the last picture before she died, but seemed to be at a pageant that she won. And in the background is a woman who looks incredibly close to Ghislaine Maxwell.
But we'll have that picture right now.
Is fucking wild, bro. And for all those people out there, saying that it is not Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know anybody else in the whole world that has that cheekbone nose combination with that haircut. Bitch has been rocking the same haircut since the 1970s, bro. I don't know anybody else with those combinations of things. So I'm not saying that she killed John Benet Ramsey, but it's a little weird.
You look at the picture, you let us know. The thing with that Prince Andrew thing is, like, so he came out and he was like, oh, well, I didn't know Epstein until 2000, and I didn't really talk to him. But, like, bro, you have a picture with your arms around the girl who accused you of sexually assaulting her with Maxwell in the background. How much farther can you get into this than that? Like, granted, it's not proof. It's not like it was a picture of them having sex or anything, but like, that's the closest thing to proof that I could see without going that far.
So another interesting fact about Prince Andrew is that after he was convicted of his crimes the second time, like the accusations were already out there, he's a proven sexual offender. The second time, Prince Andrew flies to New York to supposedly tell Epstein that he didn't want to be acquainted anymore, and then stayed at his New York estate for 4 days. When asked why in an interview, my man said because it was a convenient place to stay. Mm-hmm. He's not the only one, though, because Bill Gates is rumored to have taken many flights on the Lolita Express after he was convicted, and the reason he said was to raise money for a fundraiser. 1, why do you need a child predator's money? And 2, you are Bill fucking Gates, bro. You raised all that money when you fucking made the Xbox. Get out of here.
And so I'm just going back real quick. So when was Epstein? I just read the facts. So in 2008. So 2008 is when he pled guilty to everything. So at this point, if it's post 2008, there is no excuse, not a single excuse to why you would still be talking to this man. And like you said with the Prince Andrew thing, imagine going to somebody's house. Imagine I came to your house, right? Yo, what's up, dog? I don't want to fucks with you anymore. We're not cool. But like, you cool if I stay here for 4 days? Like, yeah, what?
That's crazy.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
And the only reason he really said that was because there was pictures of it. Like, there were pictures of him at his place. So obviously, at that point, what do you do?
Just damage control.
Yeah, 100%. So sliding into the next thing here, we're going to talk a little bit about Wayfair. So the theory of Wayfair trafficking kids comes from a Redditor who posted pictures of overly priced cabinets with names attached to them, and then side by side with missing person reports with people of the same name. So some of those names, Yuritsa Castro. It was a cabinet that was on sale for $13,799, and she went missing June 10th, 2020, from Harwinton. Another one is Annabelle Wilson. The cabinet went for $10,899, and she went missing May 13th, 2020, in Hutchinson, Kansas. We have Samara Duplessis. It was a pillow that her name was under, and it was a $9,999 pillow. We have Tori Dunning. It was another cabinet that went for $12,099. She went missing in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And then we have Samaya Moomin. It was another cabinet for $12,899, and she went missing from Columbus, Ohio. Another quick little fact about them, Wayfair is a drop shipper. So kind of like Amazon, they sell products themselves, but they have a lot of outside sources that sell products through them. And they have said that there was a thing where the prices were glitches and the other people make the prices, but when we went into Wayfair's website, it states specifically on the website that they create the prices for these items.
So you discussed that Wayfair picks the prices for their items. Mm-hmm. So all of that bullshit about somebody else doing that, because that's a lot of the things going on about this, or to disprove it, is that people pick the prices. What Wayfair does is they have you sell it to them wholesale, and then they determine the resale of it. Mm-hmm. So one of the places that was doing it was WRX Utilities. Was it WRX Utilities?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a Wayfair proprietor. Mm-hmm. So that's Wayfair selling products themselves. Mm-hmm. And then we looked into the other company that was doing it, the other seller, Bungalow Rose.
There's a couple of them, but we looked into Bungalow Rose.
So Bungalow Rose is who sold the pillow of Duplessis. Mm-hmm. So we look into this. Number one, there is zero look it up yourselves, Bungalow Rose LLC. There is zero information about Bungalow Rose on a random website talking about different business entities and their home locations and people that own those businesses. It gives one address. It is owned by a David B. Wagner at 1110 E Vista, Altamira, Palm Springs, California. Now, when you look at that house on Zillow, it is $1 million house. Mm-hmm. $1 million house, not a warehouse, not somewhere where you would ship products out of. $1 million house that was sold, recently in 2012 or something?
Yeah. For a lot, like a couple million. And so this was the whole rabbit hole, yo. If you listen to the podcast, you remember that idioms one we did, and we talked about that little rabbit hole we went in. No,
This is a rabbit hole.
So when you looked at like the realtor selling of it, like there was no mention of them buying it. There was nothing. It was just random. Even some of the documents that said that it was sold, you couldn't get any information on. You clicked it and there was nothing there. Super weird.
So also there was another address associated with Bungalow Rose LLC, which was associated with the name Ralph Payne, who was the realtor of these places, correct? Mm-hmm. This address is 170E Takowitz Canyon Way, Palm Springs, California, and it is a unit in a strip mall. Also, if you look it up, it does not look like the kind of place that you would be shipping product out of. And it's also, interestingly enough, next to a child dance school.
With no... So I was looking through this, and I mean, we were looking through it together, but I went to the Google Street View to try to see what I could see if I saw a sign, anything. So nothing about Bungalows, nowhere, nothing. Like maybe it was a small office building in the back, but that theater you're talking about, there were no signs. There were no, like, you know, how you have, like, you know what I'm saying, like a Walmart on the front or something. There was nothing on this big building besides for in the window there were advertisements for children's theater, like auditions and stuff like that. Super crazy. The whole area looked weird. And when you dig deeper into this rabbit hole, Palm Springs comes up quite a bit. Quite a bit. It's a little scary.
So I think my whole thing with all of this is that I'm not telling you, I would never tell you that you would buy a $10,000 chest from Wayfair and a small child would show up to your front door. I think that that's ridiculous in reality. What I am saying is that it is completely possible that on the dark webs, you negotiate a price for child trafficking and then you legally buy it through Wayfair. And it doesn't even have to be child trafficking. I think that's where everybody gets all caught up, is that it's child trafficking, but it could just be a money laundering scheme. I think that we're not here to validate anybody's conspiracies necessarily, but we are here to point out some facts and say there is something more fishy going on here.
So, like you were saying, the laundering and stuff, it makes you think about a lot of these other places that you see that kind of like, there's a lot of them. So, Mattress Firm. Go on Google Maps right now and look up Mattress Firm. So, where I'm hometown, you know, over in like the Mount Pocono area in Stroudsburg, which isn't like it's no Philly, it's no Pittsburgh, it's no big city. There are 3. Literally within like 3 miles of each other, and then if you go out a little bit there's a couple more. But like, how many times do you buy a mattress? Once every 10 years? Right? You don't go to a mattress store for repairs. You don't go to a mattress store for anything else mattress wise. You're not going to go to Mattress Firm for a pillow. You're not going to go to Mattress Firm for, you know, sheets. You know, you go to Sears for that. You go to, you know, Bed Bath & Beyond for that. So it's just a little weird. We also kind of looked into Sherwin-Williams paint.
There's also a crazy amount of Sherwin-Williams.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was 7 where I live, and it's like, how much paint do you need? We all know you buy your paint from Home Depot.
Yeah,
Stop
or Lowe's.
it.
Like, yeah, you're not going to go to this place, these huge buildings of just paint. What? And they don't even paint your house for you. You just buy paint from them. Like, that's wild. That's crazy. It blows my mind. And then sliding a little into that, so I don't know how much fact this is. That's why I didn't put it into the facts section. But there are rumors that Wayfair supplies a lot of the ICE detention centers. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen the ICE lost 1,500 children, you know. So first thing that happened years ago. Like, it's not like that whole, you know, like last year, the kids in cages. No. So what happens when these kids go to the ICE detention units, they end up getting picked up by a sponsor, which is usually family, their closest family member who's legal in the United States, and they go to them. And they do calls. So they'll call them to see how they're doing. Is everything okay? Are you being abused? Stuff like that. So out of all the people that had sponsors, 24 of them went missing. So it's like 1,470 something never responded. They couldn't reach them. They couldn't find them, which is kind of skeptical. My thing with that is some of these I have a huge certainty in my head that some of these sponsors did kidnap them. Because some of the sponsors weren't family. If they couldn't find immediate family, you got sent to like a foster home or something. Like you got sent to somebody who didn't know you. And there's definitely people in there that's doing some sick stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of them did get caught, in some sort of trafficking ring or being kidnapped. But a lot of them, you have to keep in mind, they're in these detention centers because their family was part of illegal immigration. So there's not a huge, there's a good chance that they left. They don't want to be found because if they get found, maybe the person they're staying with now is also illegal. Maybe they're protecting their family. So that's a little, however you want to take that is how you want to take that. You could look it up yourself. You could do your own research, but I definitely think some of them got put into the trafficking, but I don't think I don't think America or the owners of these ICE detention centers were like, hey, who's trying to pick up some kids? We'll give them to you. Like a little skeptical about that one.
So what if some of these kids are getting taken for adrenochrome?
All right, bro. See, now, this is where I think we might be crossing the line into crazy town a little.
Let's get into the facts.
So, essentially, adrenochrome is oxidized adrenaline, which the process is you need iron 3 to oxidize adrenaline. And one of the most common places that you could find iron 3 is in smaller molecules, most commonly blood cells. So one of the only places that manufactures and distributes where you could buy adrenochrome from is a U.S.-owned laboratory in Wuhan, China, which, if you guys have heard, is apparently where the origin of coronavirus started. Interesting. So this laboratory in Wuhan, there's a little bit of information on it. To be employed, you have to have 1 year of experience in organic synthesis, which is essentially just synthesization of organisms. It's a self-managed import-export. So they do not have guidelines. They do not have to go through anybody. They can export and import whatever they want. Like they have their own ports. They, boom, send it out. They have a couple child companies. So I'm going to be real with you. I can't pronounce. It's Hamia. Has 3 child companies. 3B Pharmachem, which it's basically a pharmaceutical making company, so they make the meds. Wuhan Eternity Technologies, which is weird because people think the adrenochrome, you drink it and you live forever, is their online shipping and selling business. And then they have a Wuhan Chip Code Technologies, which is just essentially microchip technology. So they have in their laboratory, they work on microchips and stuff. Just to finish that off, that's the adrenochrome, but there's no real facts that any elites are using it.
So yeah, there is no proof that elites are using adrenochrome to live forever. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the internet when you go into it. It is a giant rabbit hole that leads into things like Frazzle Drip, which is evidently a video of Hillary Clinton chopping some chick's face off and eating her pineal gland and, dancing around with her face like a mask, walking around screaming, and her and some other guy are sharing it. You get into Pizzagate, which is this theory that underneath of a pizzeria in DC, they were holding a child trafficking ring, which ended up being disproved. Some fucking crazy guy went there with the AK-47.
But when you look at so there were some emails with Podesta and the pizza, the guy who owned the pizza place, and it was super weird. Like the guy who owned the pizza place emailed Podesta and was like, "Hey, sorry I didn't get to make you my special pizza. Maybe I could come by and do it for you." And all of a sudden they were hanging out.
But that's
super
the
weird.
only proof is some weird emails.
Yeah.
There's no real proof
100%,
about it.
100%.
It is interesting to note that of the 12 officers that supposedly watched the Frazzle Drip video, 9 of them committed suicide.
And this Frazzle Drip video apparently came from, I don't know a lot of information about it, but there was that, I don't know his first name, Wayner. And if he went down, he said he had a bunch of videos that he was going to release, and then the feds got his laptops and stuff and found, that's where they found these videos apparently.
So I think where conspiracy theorists lose the common person is when they say things like everyone in Hollywood is a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course not everyone in Hollywood is a pedophile. I think that what we need to learn how to do is to look at things through a lens. Like, we can be cynical without being cynics. You know what I mean? Like, if you learn how to look at things objectively, we can separate things from overly crazy and that there are these things going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to say that because, all of Hollywood are pedophiles, people lose that because they're like, no, you're not. So then the detractors use that as a reason as nobody in Hollywood is a pedophile, which isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think that it is impossible for elites to be running a child trafficking ring, we propose Mark Dutroux.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think that it is impossible for elites to be running a child trafficking ring, we propose Mark Dutroux.
So first things first, what I'm about to read you is not my own writing. It is from a Reddit post. And the original Redditor that posted this, you can't find his name, saw a couple people repost it. But the reason I wanted to read this is because essentially it boils down the information to the best of the ability. And I looked, so anything I couldn't find proof on, I took out. And I added a couple things that I found that did happen. So Mark Dutroux was born in Belgium in 1956. He was twice convicted of kidnapping and raping underage children. The first time was in 1989, and the second time occurred in 1996. He served only 3.5 years of his 13-year sentence because he was released on good behavior. Less than 10 years later, he was arrested again for the same charge. Different victims. In the second round of charges, he was convicted of kidnapping, torturing, and abusing victims, some of them to the point of death. So what I'm about to tell you from here on out comes from the statements made by the surviving victims, called the X-Files, because they didn't want to release their names, so they did like X1, X2, X3. Those are how they identified their witnesses. And Mark Dutroux himself, my man, confessed, gave out some information. So Mark confessed to kidnapping, raping, drugging, torturing, and filming children for many years. He also claimed he was doing it on the behest of political elites who financed his career as a professional tracker. Not only did this political elite finance his efforts, they made specific requests of him. Sometimes they requested specific types of children. They were called party favors, and he was asked to deliver kids of certain age, sex, and race. Sometimes they requested specific means of torturing the children to fulfill their desires. Orgies, satanic rituals including sacrifices, and torture games. Kind of leads into the adrenochrome thing. And sometimes they even requested he film certain influential people engaged in these acts for use later as blackmail. He claimed many of his customers and financiers were world leaders. This was not a stretch of the imagination because he lived in Belgium, where the EU and NATO headquarters were located. This statement was also corroborated by victims who were able to identify specific politicians. Annika Lucas was one of his victims who testified against him. She claims that she was 6 years old when the cleaning lady hired by her mother sold her to a pedophile network in 1969. Her claims were extraordinary. She was 6 years old when she was forced to participate in her first orgy, which included wearing an iron dog collar and eating human feces. She would actually be delivered back to her parents from time to time. However, her parents themselves were complicit in the crimes and also always sent her back to the abusers. Torture included being strapped to a butcher's block that was used to execute other children. Other victims were forced to torture her for hours as part of their initiation. She was considered attractive, and that made her preferred by her abusers. She claimed that she tried to use that to her survival advantage to the best of her ability, but by age 11, she had become so broken that she was slated to be executed and disposed of. She said she was saved when one of her abusers negotiated for her freedom. That abuser would later sit as a defendant in the trial. Other witnesses and victims would soon come forward, the X1, 2, 3, 4s that I was talking about, describing such things as black masses, with children and adult sacrifices taking place in front of the observers and participants, which included prominent politicians and figures. This would be corroborated by a note found by police at the house belonging to Bernard Weinstein, a man who previously worked with Dutroux, but whom Dutroux had murdered. The letters contain very specific requests for certain types of victims for satanic sacrifices. The letter was signed by a man who called himself Anubis. It turned out Anubis was the high priest of a satanic cult called Abrasa, whose real name was Francis Desmond. Police obtained a warrant and seized computers, documents, mail, actual human skulls, jars of blood, and all sorts of satanic items, but none of this was enough to make an arrest. Marx Dutroux was being investigated by police over his activity relating to a stolen vehicle. When it is known that police will search his house, the head of operations, Reen Macau, intervenes. He insists on conducting the search himself and brings with him only a locksmith, apparently to help him gain access to any locked rooms or containers of interest. So again, the police chief essentially was like, no, I'll go alone. I'm just going to bring this one dude. During the search, the locksmith hears children calling out, and according to his statement, Macau hisses the word silence, and the voices stop. When the locksmith presses the policeman over what is happening, he is told that the noises are children playing outside. What is clear to us now is that they were hearing the voices of two 8-year-old girls trapped in the dungeon. What's more, Macau confiscates a series of videotapes that he never watches. These tapes not only show Dutroux building his dungeon, but also raping a 14-year-old girl. The tapes were then eventually returned to Dutroux. Macau was promoted in the future to police commissioner. Not because of this, but in the future he was promoted. The later leading investigator, Michael Burlett, said that some of the videotapes had disappeared and that he wants to have them all recovered and reviewed. The videos were reportedly stolen after they were returned to Dutroux. In 1999, some of the tapes were finally reviewed. One of them showed Dutroux raping a young woman in Slovakia. The videos could have made it possible to identify other victims and also exactly determine the severity of the torture that the victims had to endure during their ordeal. Later, during the trial, the lawyer of one of the victims also expressed disappointment that the videos weren't reviewed because they could have proved that Dutroux wasn't acting alone. With all this evidence, there was also over 6,000 different strands of hair that were found in the basement where he confessed to letting others use it for services with the young girls. But the prosecutor general and Phil said that there was no network, so there was no need to look for evidence of one. In 1995, Dutroux' mother, his own mother, wrote a letter to the authorities stating that she knew that Dutroux had kidnapped 2 girls and that he was keeping them in his basement. As the Dutroux trial went public, other victims stepped forward and confirmed the testimony, offering up descriptions of sexual abuse and human sacrifices. They also described hunting parties, where elites would release naked children into the woods to hide, so that the elites themselves could hunt them down and slaughter them. Many of the stories from victims contained so many similarities they were impossible to deny. For example, the hunting parties were often held at castles where victims could not escape and were hidden from the public eye. Those not killed in the hunt were usually chased down later and mauled or killed by Dobermans. All of these victims echoed the testimonies of other, older survivors of ritual satanic abuse from around the world.
So it is notable that Dutroux owned 10 homes valued at $6 million. It is also notable that Dutroux was not employed. It is notable that Dutroux received $1,200 per month in public assistance, which is to be believed because he was considered psychologically unable to work and got disability. It is also notable that the documents released by WikiLeaks showed large sums of money in various currencies were deposited into his wife's bank account. It is also notable that those deposits coincided with reported kidnappings and missing children reports. It is notable that before his removal, Judge Jean-Marc Conneray was on the verge of publicly disclosing the names of high-level government officials who had been recognized on the videotapes of sexual torture that took place in Dutroux' dungeon. It is also notable that 20 potential witnesses in the case against Dutroux died without explanation. Some of those people were Regina Long, main and first witness to come forward, described the house in great detail and accuracy. The police team who were in charge of Loaf were removed from the case for fabricating evidence, and Regina was declared mentally incompetent and her file was closed. Christian Conneretz, a prisoner who escaped during a court hearing and was found murdered. Bridget Janet committed suicide by ingesting sedatives and alcohol. No autopsy was taken. Herbert Massa, prosecutor in the case, committed suicide with no suicide note. Jose Stepe, police informant, 2 days before scheduled meeting with police, died in a bar with no autopsy carried out. Guy Goebbels, investigating disappearances, was found shot in the head in his office. Bruno Tagliaferro, found dead of a heart attack. Wife believed that he was killed. When she contacted the police to say she found information, she was then found burned to death on her bed with clothes in the washer, food on the stove, and yet it was found to be a suicide. Gina Pardons, social worker who claimed she had a snuff movie that she could link to Jean-Michel Noll, who was another defendant in the case. She drove into a bridge pillar at 60 miles per hour. Jean-Paul Tamot owned a garage opposite of Dutroux, claimed he had information, went missing, and the only thing they found was his foot in a river a year later. Francis Rakens, drug dealer who told the police he had information, found dead by being run over by a train. Michael Pirro, local club owner, asked parents of missing girls and wanted to meet and talk with them. He is then shot in his club car parking lot. Simon Poncelet, a policeman, was murdered at a police station. Security camera in the station was conveniently not working at the time. Jose Toussaint, priest who had heard confession of Michelle Martin, was found dead from a heart attack. Now, all of this makes me sick, bro. Mm-hmm. This shit is crazy. But if there's anything that this has proved to me is that the global elites, one, this was definitely a cover-up case. That many people don't go missing. That much evidence is neglected, and police usually don't do their jobs that poorly. Mm-hmm. Usually. But if you're going to say that it's impossible for global elites or anybody for that matter to be running a pedophilia ring because you want to live in a world where these things don't happen, I'm here to break it to you. These things happen. And just in the case of Mark Dutroux, just like Jeffrey Epstein, elites were helping him and then helped cover it up. It is notable that right now Dutroux is in jail serving his sentence of what's supposed to be 25 years, but is on parole this year.
His wife also just got out of prison as well, for some sort of I think she took a psychological test, and they said that. Oh no, they let her out because the lawyer claimed that she deserved to have a right of a second life, so she was released in 2020.
All right, guys. So that's the show. Hope you enjoy that casual conspiracy talk. We put a lot of work into that. We didn't talk about it on last episode. There was a lot of serious subject matter, but we're here to speak out. Berlin has left us. He never came back to watch the episode.
We miss you.
Come back, please. Some shout outs to, the people from our local town. Shout out to my man Tai, who's letting us use his fucking basement right now. You're a day one, my guy. I also want to give a shout out to Darren for giving us that adrenochrome story or putting me onto it. Shout out to Darren's little sister. Fuck you. And, you got anybody you want to shout out?
Well, I'd like to shout out my coworker Caitlin, who actually sent me that Mark Dutroux article, which really, I mean, we didn't find out about this until after we were almost done with the podcast, and we were like, we got to add it. Like, that just fits better than anything we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
So shout out to you, Caitlin. Thank you. Other than that, I mean, shout out to the homies. Another shout out to my man Ty Guy for letting us use the basement. A lot of things are going down. Shout out to not just Chesapeake or anything like that. Shout out to anybody who's watched, listened. We love you all. If you guys could follow the Twitter at KBop Variety Hour, that'd be super lit. We also have a YouTube channel now. So, I mean, if you're watching
subscribe.
This... Yeah, if you're watching this, you probably already know. But click subscribe, please. It helps tremendously. It's awesome, and it makes us feel really good when we look at our computers and we see, hey, new subscriber. Lit. Anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Well, as always, it's K.
And I'm Bob.
And this is the KBop Variety Hour.